The Conjuring: Last Rites. On September 5th.
Hey, come down here! I need your help! Hooray! Hooray! Hooray!
The Conjuring: Last Rites. Only in theaters September 5th. Rated R.
This episode is brought to you by Dogfish Head Craft Brewery. The Grateful Dead and Dogfish Head have gotten the band back together with the release of Grateful Dead Juicy Pale Ale, a light-bodied pale ale brewed with sustainable Kernza grains, granola, and heaps of good karma for a refreshing brew that's music to your taste buds. Available nationwide. Visit dogfish.com to find Grateful Dead Juicy Pale Ale in your neck of the woods. Dogfish Head Craft Brewery is located in Milton, Delaware. Please drink responsibly.
The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative. On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Hi, welcome to the Dick Morris and Doug DePiro Show.
Hello, Dick Morris.
Sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. I want to begin by reading a memo by Victor Davis Hanson, who I love. And the more he writes, the more I love him.
He's great.
And he just said something that is so important. The headline is, "What made the Democrats go crazy?" Question a lot of people are asking themselves. The Democratic Party is bleeding out because it either does not address what the middle class is worried about or it offers no solution to popular anger, namely over inflation, out-of-control DEI commissariat, illegal immigration, crime, high energy prices, and tyrannical Green New Deal policies, steep interest rates, unaffordable housing costs, and anemic foreign policies. Other than that, the Democrats are doing fine. But while the public knows how the left Democratic agenda is imploding, they're confused as to why the Democratic Party is so hell-bent on such nihilistic missions. Why did Democrats become unrecognizable to the middle class? And who is responsible for their collective self-destruction? The question a lot of us are asking. He cites several causes. First, globalization. Globalization asymmetrically enriched the bi-coastal liberal elite in big tech, international corporations, the media, academia, law, government, etc., with new worldwide markets and audiences. In contrast, muscular labor and resource extraction involving the assembly, manufacturing, farming, construction, mining, timber, oil, etc., was sometimes offshored, outsourced, or ossified due to free but not fair trade. So the Democrats went giddy at the millennium, when both billionaires and affluent professionals, often from the new trillions of dollars in market capitalization in Silicon Valley and Wall Street, trended left-wing. But who then needed the middle class when Democrats now had such huge financial and political resources in government, foundations, NGOs, the media, and higher education to affect public opinion, change voting laws, and outspend Republicans? So Democrats became a utopian elite cadre of the very wealthy who would patronize and take care of the subsidized poor, both as psychological penance to assuage their guilt over their newfound global riches and to solidify poorer voters with expansionary entitlements. The second cause he cites, the first having been globalization, is illegal immigration.
The second one.
Mm-hmm. The left knew its issues were not winners, so they began at the millennium redefining illegal immigration as legal immigration, or just immigration, or even migrant. The result was that by 2025, 55 million residents and citizens of various status were not American-born, a record 16% of the population.
Wow.
From 2021 to 2025, 10 to 12 million illegal aliens had added to the pool of some 20 million existing resident illegal aliens. As the instantaneously oppressed, new migrants concocted grievances of racism against the majority culture to be addressed by progressive-funded DEI affirmative action appointments in hiring and admissions. New mail-in and early ballot COVID-era rules were designed to end the audit and authentication of ballots and tailored to accommodate those who might vote without the bother of citizenship. The new migrants understood that the Democratic Party gave them an instant pathway to the middle class through racial and ethnic preferences after the Obama-era new concept of diversity. It had redefined the old affirmative action black-white binary of 12 to 88 percentages into a huge victimized class of 30% of the population who are now portrayed as oppressed by the 70% majority and thus deserving of special treatment. Class and wealth no longer mattered and were replaced by superficial appearance and race and gender.
Well, they're victims, you know.
But they're now a third of the country victims. Yeah. Ironically, however, the Frankenstein monster of massive illegal immigration and DEI pandering proved fatal to the old liberal Dr. Frankenstein. Suddenly there were venomous anti-Israel and unapologetic pro-Hamas protests on campus, as over 1 million foreign students swarmed into higher education. DEI took on an overtly and radically racist tone. Now, of course, Trump is getting rid of those students, cutting back on the issuance of student visas, and throwing out many millions of those who are already here.
You know what's amazing, Dick? The hype of the left, that they're able to do that, to get kids to go against Israel and pro-Palestinian Hamas. This amazing, the brilliance of the left, how they can do that.
Yeah.
You know, brainwash people. I can't get over it.
Right.
Go on.
Then the third reason he cites, the first is globalization, the second is illegal immigration. He's giving the reasons why the Democratic Party is dying. The rise of the guilt-ridden professional. Globalization did not just launch the Google creators, Jeff and Mackenzie, Bezos, Mike Bloomberg, Reid Hoffman, Lisa Jobs, blah, 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 and a host of other big
George Soros, that's important, and Zuckerberg.
But also a secondary class of millions of wealthy and privileged bi-coastal professional underlings. From La Jova to Seattle, from New England to Washington, these credentialed, entitled experts saw themselves as the end of history. As the new decreed aristocracy, no longer was there time and money needed to address adequate housing, fuel, food prices, transportation, and health care. Instead, they were freed to worry globally, especially about the red-hot hoi polloi's ignorance might endanger their own beatific lives. Thus were born radical climate change psychodramas, the transfiguration of civil rights into racial bias and prejudice, and radical cosmopolitanism that saw the EU, the UN, Davos, and all their appendages as enlightened models to nullify the global losers in the interior of America, who are now dubbed clingers, irredeemables, deplorables, chumps, dregs, and garbage.
I don't remember being called a chump. I heard the other stuff. I don't remember who did
a dreg, a deplorable.
But who did the chump? Obama, I think.
I can't think
called
of
us
chump.
Chumps.
Yeah. The fourth reason he cites is higher education. Elite universities have become fabulously rich and globalized. The bicoastal elite prized gilded letters after their names, BA, MA, MBA, JD, MA, PhD, MD.
ASS.
Right. From the right places. The Ivy League, Stanford, Berkeley, or the Tony four-year colleges like Amherst, Brown, Williams, etc. Alumni gave literally to elite campuses and advocated that others, like-minded but even richer, topped their donations. Over 1 million foreign students flocked to higher education, paying 110% tuition, room, and board premiums without background audits. Student loans surged to $1.7 trillion, delighting universities that jacked up their charges accordingly. to suggest that even a small percentage of 300,000 Chinese students were actively engaged in espionage, or that 50 to 60,000 students from regimes in the Middle East that were anti-Semitic was attacked. Those views were attacked as nativist, xenophobic, and racist.
Yeah, of course.
Endowments soared to 30, 40, and 50 billion in the Ivy League and elite campuses. Administrators and their staff grew exponentially to rival the number of students, all to handle the new all-purpose university. The goal was no longer impartial education, but overt ideological bias. Unquestioned was the campus orthodoxy that the U.S. was hopelessly traditional and conservative, so left-wing higher education was not so much prejudicial, but a needed balance to the clueless American public. No longer were crackpot ideas of the faculty lounge that the world would boil over in a decade, that biological men could compete against and dress with women. The most affluent, privileged, non-white immigrants were victimized. They were no longer just esoteric. They were now mainstreamed into the policies of the Democratic Party, as well as the administrative state. From the Department of Education and the DOJ to the Pentagon, the FBI, and the CIA. The Democrats abandoned the middle class because they saw it as a global loser and themselves as worldwide winners. Now they had the institutions and the big money, along with the leverage of millions of high-paid coastal professionals and law, media, the university, administrative state, so they could win elections by outspending, outbroadcasting, and outregulating their clueless opponents. This is Victor Davis Hanson continuing.
He's great.
Only the Neanderthals, meaning us, worried about how to buy a small house. The real winners worried about the latest fad in natural kitchen counters, cabinets, and flooring. Only the deplorables fretted about electricity costs and gas prices, rather than their far more important carbon footprint. Only the blinkered thought that crime, because they lacked the intelligence and savvy to live safely and securely in the right zip code. The elite university became the farm team for the new elite. Its position papers, grant-funded research, and latest studies would supposedly provide the expertise the authorities and the experts would provide to necessarily correct the analysis of climate change, race, crime, immigration, and foreign policy.
Well, you know, Dick.
So that's what happened.
That just answered my question before. That just answered my question about how, the brainwashing, how they're so brilliant. Well, that's it. That's just how they brainwash everyone.
And we've often quoted Herbert Marcuse, the great Marxist philosopher. And he quotes Mao Zedong, who had the Long March, which was the retreat of the communists in China from the south to the north. And he said, Marcuse said, we needed to take a long march through America's institutions to change the country fundamentally. And that basically is what Victor Davis Hanson
all the schools
describing.
And all this. And by the way, it's Mao Zedong that
right.
I remember when I was growing up.
Okay.
All right, so we'll take a break and we're going to talk
when we come back, we're going to talk about how the D.C. mayor, Muriel Bowser, acknowledged Wednesday that violent crime had fallen sharply since Trump ordered federal law enforcement surge in Washington.
When we come back.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DePiro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. You remember how when Trump sent troops into the National Guard into Washington, everybody said, oh, you're overreacting. This is the state trying to take everything over. Well, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser acknowledged Wednesday that they were wrong.
That the violent crime has fallen sharply since President Trump ordered a federal law enforcement surge in the district. And she signaled that she's not eager for that effort to end after the initial 30-day emergency declaration. Bowser told reporters at an afternoon news conference that she was grateful for the added law enforcement presence, pointing to what she called striking drops in key crime categories. And we'll talk about Chicago later, where they don't want it, and we'll talk about that later. The most significant thing that we are highlighting today is the area of crime that was most troubling for us in 2023, she said, noting that since the surge of federal officers, carjackings fell by 87%. That's big, compared to the same period last year. We know that when carjackings go down, when the use of gun goes down, when homicide or robbery goes down, neighborhoods feel safer and are safer. So this surge has been important to us. The mayor said she spoke with Trump earlier in the day, recalling their first meeting after his reelection. I was reminded that the president's interest in cities predates his time in office, and his knowledge of D.C. has significantly increased, Bowser said. She described the call as courtesy meeting, emphasizing that more substantial discussions had taken place with Attorney General Pam Bondi and White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles, who we know very well. Her positive assessment comes just days after Trump warned that she better get her act straight or she won't be mayor for long. He's funny, isn't he? Asked whether her upbeat tone was a response to that threat, Bowser downplayed the idea. She again described her conversation with Trump as a courtesy call and declined to go into detail, but said she outlined both concerns and benefits of the surge, stressing the influx of federal officers had expanded MPD's capacity on the streets. Her comments on Wednesday contrasted with the response from the other Democratic leaders in the region a couple of weeks ago when Trump first announced the federal takeover. At that time, the D.C. Council passed unanimous resolution denouncing the move as an unwarranted intrusion on home rule. And we're going to talk about Chicago later. But before I get into the next story, I just wanted, the call-in number is 1-800-848 9222 1-800-848-9222. And one other thing I just want to say to happy Women in Labor Day, by the way.
Right. Well, it's Labor Day.
Women. What? Oh, it's Labor. Oh, I thought it was.
Oh, you thought it was Women in Labor.
Oh, that's what I thought. Okay, Women's Labor Day. No.
This is after their labor is over and the kid is born. Welcome to Labor Day.
So anyway, the CDC boss fired, refused to quit, and I don't know if I'm saying her last name right. Menarez, I think so. Yeah. Susan Menarez, who was apparently ousted as CDC director on Wednesday afternoon after only weeks on the job, said hours later that she had not been fired and would not resign.
I ain't going
nowhere. Get a job. We should have used that song.
Right. Hang on to the curtains and drag her out by the heels.
Yeah, right. The Department of Health and Human Services posted a statement on X around 5:30 saying Susan Menarez is no longer director of the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. Less than 2 hours later, D.C. Attorney Mark Zaid released a defiant statement on Menarez's behalf. When CDC Director Susan Menarez refused to rubber stamp unscientific, reckless directives and fire dedicated health expert, she chose protecting the public over serving a political agenda. For that, she has been targeted. That's the statement I said. Dr. Menarez has neither resigned nor received notification from the White House that she had been fired. And as a person of integrity and devoted to science, she will not resign.
She apparently never watched the Trump show where he says,
You're fired. Hey, I just watched The Apprentice, the movie about him. It was pretty good. I didn't see the very end, but it looked pretty good. According to the New York Times, HHS Secretary Kennedy told Menarez to resign or be fired on Monday over tensions around vaccine policy. Instead, Menarez reached out to Senator Bill Cassidy the chair of Senate and Health Committee, further infuriating Kennedy, according to the Times. A source familiar with the situation confirmed to The Hill earlier on Wednesday that Menarez had been ousted as CDC director. The Senate confirmed her on July 29th after Trump nominated her for and Menarez was first CDC director to require Senate confirmation after that role became increasingly politicized during the COVID thing.
So basically, Menarez is implementing Kennedy's policy on vaccines, which has been misstated as being he's anti-vaccine. He's not.
No.
He believes that the evidence justifying vaccines and minimizing their side effects was produced by people who were working for the pharmaceutical company.
And it shouldn't be a mandate.
And that people should be able exactly to make their choice as to what to do.
Right.
And this goes directly to the ability of the big drug companies to finance themselves. Pfizer basically got all of its profits for a year from the COVID vaccine.
Yeah, right.
And then the administration kept saying more and more people under Biden need the vaccine, and more campaign contributions went to Biden from the drug companies.
And they stated that children don't need it, but the Pfizer said, no, children should have it and whatnot. I just saw a commercial a couple of weeks ago about get your COVID vaccine.
Yeah,
I go,
right.
Oh, my God.
And this is all masquerading as public health, but in fact, it's a political payoff to the drug companies.
It's a cash cow.
Yeah, exactly.
That's basically it.
Now, in the meantime, Trump ratings have hit a new high. Trump's approval rating has hit a personal record high in the poll from the far-left Associated Press. This was the Associated Press, AP, is essentially the left-wing poll. And by the choice of sample and everything else.
Well, first of all, Associated Press starts with ASS once again. Just so we know. Okay, go on.
After more than 6 months in office and 2 weeks after ordering the National Guard into Washington, Trump's job approval rating jumped 5 points from 40% in July to 45% today. In this particular poll, that 45% is a record high, reaching back to when AP first started tracking presidential job approval in 2016. So his net approval on crime is up 8, on immigration is up 9, on the economy is actually minus 11, but it used to be minus 22.
And immigration is minus 9, not up 9.
Well, yeah, but I don't like that question because it implies you're for illegal immigration.
Oh, okay.
The poll also shows that a vast majority of the public agrees with Trump on a number of issues Democrats oppose him on. While Democrats and their regime media allies assure us that violent crime is not a serious problem, the AP poll found that 2/3 of the public think crime is a major problem in the country overall, and that 8 of 10 say it's a major problem in the cities.
I mean, yeah.
What's more, 55%, including 30% of Democrats and a plurality of independents, agree that it is completely or somewhat acceptable to use U.S. military and National Guard to assist local police. On the issue of crime, 53% of the public approve of the job Trump is doing, while only 45% disapprove. During his cabinet meeting, Trump said that crime has become a trap for the Democrats. And in effect, one of the things Trump does a lot, and he's doing on this issue, is he comes out with a position that would be consensus and normally everybody would agree, knowing that the Democrats are going to raise hell and not agree with it.
Well, for the votes, for the bad people that vote for them?
Yeah.
That's basically
for their constituency.
Yeah.
We've talked a lot on this show and other places about how when the Democrats lose, they move to the left.
Right.
And what Trump does is really bait them by proposing stuff that he knows the Democrats will oppose,
right,
and will dig them deeper and deeper into a hole. And his latest move is about crime, where he's absolutely made the Democrats take anti-crime positions, or at least publicize the positions they've always had, knowing full well that it's going to kill them.
But I think it's less of going after the Democrats that there's, to oppose them and this and that, than to do the right thing. to show the contrast of how bad they are, not because he cares about making them look bad. He wants to do the right thing and get crime to go away.
Well, I think that the more he talks about crime, the better he's going to do politically.
Sure.
Because there's a tendency on the left to treat crime as inevitable. I know. It's there.
Yeah.
And nobody can do anything about it,
what
and
are
so
gonna
on.
do?
And what Trump has really done is, by a combination of the short-term dispatch of the National Guard and cutting of federal funding, which we'll come to in a minute, he's really shown that crime is a solvable problem.
Without a doubt.
Something Rudy Giuliani taught us in New York.
I love Rudy. And I'm going to tell you this. Once again, I've said this quite a few times, that I don't think Trump cares about legacy. I think he cares about doing the right thing, and that's going to be his legacy. I believe getting rid of ISIS should be a legacy of his, right? But I don't think he cares about. Of course, he cares. He's got the ego and all. But I think he cares more about doing all the things to help the country with crime and the economy and energy. That's going to be his legacy, the best president to ever serve.
Now, one of the moves that I expect he's going to make this week is he's announced that he's preparing a major crime bill for the Congress, and he's working closely with the Republicans to do that. And I think that what Trump is going to do is to take this whole agenda of left-wing pro-crime measures that have passed city after city. No bail, no cash bail. If you're arrested, you're released right away. Increasingly no special singling out of repeat criminals, no solitary detention, all kinds of stuff that are reforms that basically emasculated the police and have enabled crime to flourish.
Ugh.
And he's telling cities and states, if you go do this, you're going to lose federal funding. We're not going to give you federal dollars to undermine law and order. This began when Sean Duffy, the Secretary of Transportation, told New York City that unless you clean up your subway system, you're not getting a federal subsidy for mass transit. And the result was major increases in law enforcement on the subways. And that's the formula I think Trump is going to use. I'm a little antsy about his sending in the National Guard because I'm worried of another Rodney King or your George Floyd situations.
Yeah, but we can't really look at that. Yes, Matt Schlapp said that. We were talking to him about this. And when I sort of agreed, but then I said, well, you can't look at it that way. You really can't. You want to clean it up. That's like sending the cops into some domestic thing, and they have to put the guy down that's hurting the way. What are you going to do?
Well, yeah, but there is a way to do it, and I think Trump is increasingly going to move in this direction, which is you pass a law, an executive order, cutting funding to cities that do not enforce the law.
Oh, sure. Okay.
That are not good on crime.
That's going to be a slow move, but that will help.
That'll be decisive, ultimately.
Right, but it'll be a slow move. We got Rich in New Jersey that wants to talk about that with the Guard. Okay. Hey, Rich, how you doing?
Hey, guys. Hey, Dick. My friends from high school used to call me Dick. And by the way, my second cousin on my mother's side is Joe Concha, so shout out to Joe Concha.
Oh, I love him.
Hi.
He's great.
He's a relative. You notice how the libs say...
You're a relative of Joe Concha, to get on the air, you got to call Mike.
Yeah, right. You didn't call him, you're calling us.
I'm calling you guys. You notice how the libs say, if we can only just save one life, it's worth it to do this, that, or the other thing. But they won't send the Guard into Chicago to save one life.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, it's all political, and it's Trump attacking the base of the Democratic Party by pointing out that their policies are really creating and enhancing crime, and the Democrats are scared to death of that issue. Now,
thanks, Rich.
Thank you. Now, abroad, Trump is changing his policy gradually on Ukraine. He's gotten very frustrated that after the face-to-face summit with Putin, nothing's happened. And Russia does not look like it's really sincere about a peace deal in Ukraine. So Trump is making good on his threat to double tariffs on imports from India to 50%, as punishment for importing Russian oil.
Wow.
Which helps Moscow finance its war in Ukraine. What's been going on is that the Russians sell their oil mainly to the Chinese and to India. China we can't do anything about, but India we can. And Trump is saying that if you buy all of this Russian oil and you're funding their war in the Ukraine, we'll put a tariff on that that'll be so high that you won't be able to do that. The Trump administration is also prepared to boost its role in post-war security guarantees for Ukraine. According to reports in the European press, it now plans to offer Ukraine U.S. intel, access to American intel assets, battlefield oversights and air power to the European-led air defensive shield. So Trump is moving on two fronts, the economic front and the military front, to end this war. And in effect, Putin is calling his bluff and saying, I know you're a politician. All you care about is the media event.
Yeah.
And I gave you that in Alaska, and I shook your hand, and I agreed to progress. And then next thing you know, we launched new drone strikes against Ukraine. And now Trump is coming back and saying, hey, no, I'm going to wage economic war here. And imposing new tariffs on India is the first salvo in the economic war. Trump said he has other very serious consequences in mind besides turning the screws on Russia's trading partner. It will not be a world war, but it will be an economic war.
Right.
And economic war is going to bad. It's going to be very bad for Russia. And I don't want that, Trump said at a cabinet meeting. It's very serious what I have in mind if I have to do it. The imposition of high tariffs to wean India off Russian oil, cut their head off if they use it, is an inflection point in Mr. Trump's use of tariffs to achieve goals beyond economics. So, India, yeah.
You know, Trump doesn't bluff, first of all. He doesn't play poker. He's more of a target shooter. You know what I mean? He doesn't play poker. He's not bluffing anyone. Like Putin said, it's about to bluff. It's not going to, I don't think.
Before the war in Ukraine, India purchased only about 100,000 barrels a day of oil from Russia. Now it's getting 1.8 million barrels a day, or 39% of its total oil imports. Before Trump walloped India with 50% tariff, refiners announced plans to trim their purchases from Russia over the next few weeks. However, India has given no sign that it plans to ratchet back its purchases from Russia. The loss of the Indian market would be devastating to Russia. Ukrainian drone strikes have crippled the refining sites across the country. This summer, Ukraine stepped up its use of the drone campaign against Russia's energy assets, damaging its ability to refine oil. The attacks have had an impact. Gas stations in several regions in Russia are running dry, prices are surging to record high, and long lines are forming to purchase gas. Ukraine's recent drone strikes have disrupted 17% of Russia's refining capacity.
Wow.
An equivalent of 1.1 million barrels a day. So how much longer is Russia going to take this?
Wow.
And Trump is... The important thing about Trump is he doesn't believe in invasion. He believes in economic war.
Sure.
And you watch how he's doing that. First he told Russia, we're not going to buy your oil and gas. And Russia shrugged and they said the Chinese will buy it and the Indians will buy it. Now he's saying we're not going to let them buy it. We're going to tariff them. And he really is using economic power as a way to stop a war in this case.
And not create one on our side. Our
Right.
troops that have to go anywhere. It's
Yep.
beautiful. So we got to take a break. When we come back, Trump raises $1.5 billion since he took office. When we
Imagine
get back.
that. $1.5 billion
No, I can't.
of campaign money that he's raised.
Unbelievable.
I should quit this job and go back to the campaign.
Before I get into the next topic, the call-in number, 1-800-848-9222. That's 848-9222. All right, call in. Let's talk. So Trump is raising $1.5 $1.5 billion. President Trump is a winner, and the public knows it. Witness the $1.5 billion he has raised since being returned to the White House, hitting a milestone in contributions as leaderless Democrats flail and flounder in his wake.
It's important to understand that Trump really does not rely on large contributions.
Right.
Large corporate contributions. He raises his money by direct mail, online, by phone, small
and what
donations.
Are they, under 2,000? What are his contributions? There's a smaller contribution.
I don't know what it's down to.
Right, there is a limit.
Yeah, but he's always been, but on soft money, there is no limit.
Yeah.
And whereas Biden would just take multi-million-dollar checks, Trump doesn't.
Well, he's taking his checks from his son that got it from somebody else, that type of thing. Anyway, Trump confirmed his financial windfall driven by the runway 2024 electoral triumph by taking to social media. I'm pleased to report that I have raised since the great presidential election of 24 in various forms and political entities in excess of $1.5 billion. Make America great again. Make America rich again, he should write. The Hill reports the main super PAC affiliated with Trump, MAGA Inc., reported nearly $200 million in the bank this month as it looks to the 26 midterms in which control of Congress will be up for grabs.
So I think that's very important. And the ammo supply is terrific.
It's unbelievable.
Now, Kennedy has announced that the FDA has rescinded emergency use authorizations for COVID-19 vaccines.
Right. So Health and Human Services, Kennedy, announced Wednesday that the Food and Drug Administration rescinded what Dick just said, emergency use for COVID vaccines. I promise 4 things. 1, to end COVID vaccine mandates. 2, to keep vaccines available to people who want them, especially the vulnerable. 3, to demand placebo-controlled trials from companies. 4, to end the emergency, basically, right? In a series of FDA...
That was a statement by Kennedy.
Right. In a series of FDA actions today, we accomplished, this is also Kennedy, we accomplished all 4 goals. The emergency use authorization for COVID vaccines, once used to justify broad mandates on the general public during the Biden administration, are now rescinded. FDA has now issued marketing authorization for those at higher risk. Moderna, 6 months, 6+, Pfizer, 5+, and Novavax, 12+. These vaccines are available for all patients who choose to use them with consulted with their doctors. He continued, the American people demanded science, safety, and common sense. This framework delivers all 3. Yeah. So you still could get them, but you're not mandated to get them.
And especially not if you're a child or an infant.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah. Children. We have time for this next one, Dick?
I think we do.
Trump cracks down on visa fraud.
Yeah, half of the illegals in the United States a year ago, I don't know what the number is now, came here legally on visas, student visas, and they just stay in the country. They hang out here all the time. And they go from one university to another, rarely attending classes.
Yeah.
And they use it as a way around.
Right. So Trump has proposed implementing a cap on the length of foreign students' visas as a part of an effort to ensure the timely departure of those. The Department of Homeland Security announced Wednesday afternoon that it proposed a rule to limit the amount of time that certain visa holders, including students, can remain in the United States. For too long, past administrations had allowed foreign students and other visa holders to remain in the U.S. virtually indefinitely, posing safety risks, costing untold amount of taxpayer dollars, and disadvantaging U.S. citizens. A DHS spokesperson said. This new proposal rule will end that abuse once and for all by limiting the amount of time certain visa holders are allowed to remain, easing the burden on the federal government to properly oversee foreign students. Foreign students may apply for an F visa to enter the country for college or university. The F visa has existed since 1978 and states that the recipient may remain in the U.S. for the duration of status, which is considered an indefinite amount of time. According to the DHS, foreign students have taken advantage of U.S. generosity and became forever students. The rule was proposed in Federal Register and must be approved later this fall, would give students 4 years to start and finish their higher education. Additionally, foreign media representatives would be initially capped at 240-day or 8-month visa. The changes to duration of visas would be twofold, according to the DHS. It would crack down on existing visa fraud committed by students who have stayed in the U.S. for months to years past their graduation date. The visa reform will also allow the DHS to increasingly focus on vetting applicants rather than tracking down students who have overstayed their visas and are now illegally present in the country.
Yeah. So this is very important, and it's crucial to stopping the campuses from becoming hotbeds, branch offices really of Hamas, and now those kids, those people are not going to be allowed to stay in the country perpetually, and these I'm sure everybody is experienced with kids that live in the mom's basement and are going to college and never leave.
You know, when you were young, Dick, well, not you. When I was young, my mother would say, go out and weed the garden over there. Weed the hedges. You had to go out and weed. I know you don't know that, but that's what they're doing.
You always saw weed as a verb, not a noun.
No, I don't smoke it, though. All right, when we get back, we're going to talk about something.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Chicago didn't just issue a statement. He signed an executive order ordering city employees, city cops, not to cooperate with the federal government, not to cooperate with ICE.
That's unbelievable.
Actually, an executive order by a city to order non-cooperation with the federal government.
I want crime in my city. I don't want safe and peace-abiding citizens.
Since they fired on Fort Sumter and start the Civil War, states have generally not adopted policies of not cooperation with the federal government. And now Chicago is doing that. It's incredible. And the cause is that they want more crime. And it's incredible that they're doing that and that they're getting away with it politically.
Well, at least they'll get all the criminals to go there. You know what I mean? Criminals can leave my neighborhood, and I'll tell them. I'll give them free ride.
Yeah, you tilt the country, and the map tilts, and people come to Chicago. Now, a military clash is looming in Venezuela, where Trump has correctly identified Maduro.
We're not going there, are we, next week or anything? No, not Venezuela.
We're flying over it, though.
Yeah, right.
And where Trump has correctly identified Maduro as the leader of a drug cartel, and he's demanded action against him. There have been any number of elections in Venezuela that have ousted Maduro from power, but he refuses to recognize it. He stays on. He claims he won the election. Then Trump has recently deployed 4,000 sailors and Marines on ships that will circle the region to stop the drug cartels.
13 miles out, and he's safe.
Venezuela vowed to reinforce security along its border. Maduro used his weekly TV show to confirm that he'd ordered the deployment of 15,000 well-trained and armed men and women to the states that are involved, and singled out Trump's top diplomat, Rubio, warning that the U.S. risks becoming a debacle.
Yeah, okay.
Unfortunately, this gentleman, our Secretary of State, with his madness and extremism, could lead Trump to the worst possible scenario in Latin America. We will emerge victorious from this situation. Yeah, right.
Yeah, Maduro's not leading them into
what may be leading is Maduro may be fleeing the country.
Yeah, right.
To get the hell out before the U.S. troops arrive.
I don't know. I don't think he will. I think he's a madman, and he'll stay. I do.
Yeah, well.
But I love Rubio.
Yeah.
I love where he's going with everything.
So now at home, Trump has made the ultimate statement about George Soros.
President Trump openly called for both George Soros and his son, Alex Soros, to be prosecuted for funding violent protests, as we've seen.
Specifically, Trump said they should be charged under the RICO Act, Racketeering Influence Organizations. George Soros and his wonderful left-wing son should be charged with RICO because of their support of violent protests and much more all throughout America. Trump said, "We are not going to allow these lunatics to rip America apart anymore, never giving it so much as a chance to breathe and be free."
Good for him.
Soros and his group of psychopaths have caused great damage to our country. This includes his crazy West Coast friends. Be careful, we're watching you. Thank you for your attention to this matter.
I love when he says that in his tweets. Thank you for this attention to this matter. By the way, RICO is Racketeer, Influence, and Corrupt Organizations Act.
You remember that back years ago when, after Katrina, all of a sudden it turned out that Chris Christie, who was the governor of Jersey at the time, had limited access to the George Washington Bridge in retribution for the mayor of Fort Lee not backing his election in 2013.
Horrible.
And the huge traffic jams and lines and everything. 2 Christie associates were convicted in connection with the episode. Christie, a fierce critic of Trump, has never been charged. During an appearance Sunday on the ABC program This Week, Trump brought up Christie brought up the 22 FBI raid on Mar-a-Lago and criticized Trump. When we first talked about this in the context of the raid at Mar-a-Lago, I said the same thing at that point, that a federal judge had found probable cause to sign out on a search warrant, which means something, he said. Trump commented.
This is great. Hold on. I just watched sloppy Chris Christie be interviewed on a Rating Challenge news show this week with George. This is even better. With George Snopadopoulos. Slopadopoulos. So let's go. Sloppy Chris Christie and George Slopadopoulos. Where does he come up with this? Oh, by the way, Mr. Trump, Mr. President, please, if you're listening, Letitia James, I call LaShyster James. We got to get to him, Dick. I knew you've been calling him, and he hasn't. You haven't talked to him in a couple of days. You have to tell him LaShyster James because he will use it. All right, go on, Dick. Can anyone?
So Trump said, I just watched sloppy Chris Christie be interviewed on a Ratings Challenge news show this week with George Slopadopoulos. Can anyone believe anything sloppy Chris says? Do you remember the way he lied about the dangerous and deadly closure of the George Washington Bridge in order to stay out of prison, at the same time sacrificing people he worked for him, including a young mother who spent years trying to fight off the vicious charges against her? Chris refused to take responsibility for these criminal acts. For the sake of justice, we should start looking at this very serious situation. No one is above the law. And once again, thank you for your attention to this matter.
I love that he says that. You know what I think, Dick? I think he was like on his way over to Jersey or coming from Jersey, to New York, and he got stuck in traffic, Trump, and he's like, well, this guy's going to jail. I really think he said that.
But I think the background of that feud with Christie, where Christie actually ran for president saying nothing but anti-Trump stuff,
right,
is that Christie did not get the vice presidency. And I think that Christie wanted that and pushed for that. And when they gave it to Mike Pence instead, Christie was bent out of shape.
So Christie was in a prissy?
Yeah, and he's never recovered from that.
Oh, my God, little baby. I wanted it. You didn't get it, you fat
Chris Christie's never liked me. And I think
really?
I think the reason he doesn't like me is I was once giving a speech at a fundraiser in Jersey for Christie, and he had just attacked the Republican running against him, saying that for criticizing him for being too fat. So Christie said that's hitting below the belt. And
I can imagine what you said.
And I said, the governor may be heavier, but the taxes are going to be lighter. Okay, so Mexico wants $15 billion seized from top drug cartel boss to be given to Mexico's poor, the latest ripoff that they can think of. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum said Wednesday she will press the U.S. to turn over money seized from convicted Somalia cartel leader Ismael El Mayo Zambada. Sheinbaum argued that it should go to Mexico's poorest citizens.
We'll talk more about this when we get back.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Dick Morris and Doug DePiro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. So the latest cause for Mexico is the president, Claudia Sheinbaum, a crazy leftist, says that she wants the money that we seized from drug dealers in Mexico given to the country so they can spend it on what they claim are poor people. In fact, is a poor government.
So in Zambada, 77 pleaded guilty in a New York court Monday to drug trafficking and murder, including overseeing the smuggling of fentanyl and narcotic blamed for tens of thousands of overdose deaths in the U.S. each year. Prosecutors said he agreed to forfeit $15 billion as a part of the plea deal, which spared him the possibility of the death penalty, but left him facing a lifetime sentence. The longtime cartel boss sought by U.S. authorities for more than 20 years was arrested in July of 24 after arriving in Texas on a private plane. This was El Chapo. Zambada has claimed he was kidnapped and forced onto the plane and alleged and denied by governments, and this was denied by Lopez's defense. Prosecutors describe Zambada as leading a violent criminal empire backed by military-grade weapons, a private security force, and a hitman who carried out torture, kidnappings, and assassinations. They said he was even ordered the killing of his own nephew months before his arrest.
Tell the story about the lady who was intercepted by the cops and had all those guns.
Oh, yeah. And, this is what happens sometimes, right? So the cop pulls over the lady, right? And she's like 80-something years old, license, registration. She goes, "Oh, officer, I just wanted you to know before I go into my purse, I have a full carriers." And, he said, "Well, do you have a gun on you?" She said, "Yes." "Where?" "I have one in my left side in my holster." "Well, really? Okay, that's it." "Oh, I also have one in my right side in the holster." "Oh, really, ma'am?" "And also one in my ankle." "Really, madam?" "And one under the..." "Madam." He goes, "And I have one under..." He goes, ma'am, what are you so afraid of?" And she said, "Absolutely nothing." What did that have to do with this?
Well, that's what this guy flew with.
The case gives more credence to the thought that Sinaloa, that's how you say that, not Somalia, Sinaloa cartel could be nearing collapse following the imprisonment of both Zambada and El Chapo. Mexico Security Secretary Omar Garcia Harfuch, however, cautioned that the organization remains active despite weakened factions. This Sinaloa cartel, labeled a terrorist group by Washington, is considered the largest drug trafficking network in the world, with deep operations on both sides of the border. Amazing.
So let's go to Sandra.
Hi, Sandra.
Hello. Hello
Hey.
there.
Hello.
Hi, do you hear me? Hold on.
Yes, we do.
We got you.
Okay.
We got you.
I want to. I'm in Peddler's Village having a beautiful day here, but I wanted to tell you both what I wanted to say about Trump. He speaks to the Daily Caller about the conflict in Ukraine. He says it's like kids fighting in a playground. And that's what he sees. They're like two kids fighting. And he says, let them keep fighting and fighting and fighting and swinging at each other and swinging until eventually they stop.
The problem is that
people are dying.
Thousands and thousands of people are dying with each swing. And I think that was an ill-considered statement by Trump. But, he's overseeing the bargaining with Putin and Zelensky. And one of the big weapons he has is disengagement, because basically that's how he can pressure Ukraine. He can say, okay, you don't give in, you don't compromise, I'm out of here. Deal with Russia on your own. And he's using the threat of economic war against Russia to get it in line, and using the threat of backing off against Zelensky to get him in line. And that's what I think you're watching here.
Yeah, but you know what, Dick? He could say that. Anyone that listens to him, he could say that they're like two kids in the playground fighting, because he constantly says, I don't want to see any more people dying in this conflict. So he constantly is talking about that, and that's why he wants to end it. So that statement, it sounds misled, but I don't think so.
Thank you, Sandra.
Thank you, Sandra.
Take care. Let's
play some piano.
Pamela in New Jersey.
Hi, Pamela.
Okay, let's go to Richard. Hi, Richard. Hi, Richard.
Hi, Doug. How are you?
Okay, how are you?
I wanted to ask a question. I've been wondering about this for a while. The president's been talking about these tariff rebate checks. He seems to be pretty high on it, which I think is good politics and is good for the country. I was just wondering if you happen to know from the president, when the last time you spoke to him, as to when this would actually go through. How would it, how would it be implemented? Would it be an executive order, and how much the checks are that he's talking about?
Well, he has not been public about any of the details on it. And I think that this was an idea that came to him that was suggested while he's doing all of these tariffs. And I think that the revenues coming in from the tariffs are really beginning to manifest themselves, and they're huge. It's like 50 or $60 billion a month. How this will ultimately shake out, I don't know. I don't think he'd need an act of Congress. I think that this is revenue that flows into the Treasury, and the Treasury can spend it, but I may be wrong. I think that this is going to be a major issue over the next few months, but Trump is determined to give some of this money back to the people. And his theory is that particularly if they were paying higher prices to pay for these tariffs, they should get some rebates as a result of that. But on the other hand, the data shows that prices are not going up. People are not paying out of pocket for these tariffs. So I don't know if that's going to cool his enthusiasm about it, but it might. Thank you, Richard. Let's go to Mia.
Yeah, Mia in New Jersey.
Yeah, hi, guys. Great
Hi,
show.
Mia.
Listen every week. Love MAGA, love Trump, voted for him 3 times. I'm just concerned, like others, about his recent talk about Chinese students, 600,000, and kind of a softness to the Chinese, I feel, and many of my friends do.
He walked that back and said that was not an accurate quote. He's not going to let 600,000 new Chinese students in. I think he was referring to the number of Chinese students that are now in the United States, and he's probably going to cut that. I was concerned about that too, but the next day he issued a statement clarifying that. I don't think he's letting any new Chinese students into the country. The story was that he had cut that as part of his deal with China on tariffs, but I do not think that's going to happen. But thanks for your call, Mia. We'll keep you posted on that.
And we got one more. Steve from Brooklyn.
Hey, Steve.
Hey, Steve.
Yes, hello. Love you so. I am worried about our energy situation. Mr. Mondani does not like billionaires. The billionaires bringing in the oil from the Middle East every week, 1 million barrel in two ships. If there will be no billionaires, we will have no oil. We will not be able to drive cars. Also, the second thought about this, that we will not have food. People who bring in food driving trucks.
Yeah. Well, I think you're right.
I think you're right, Steve.
But thanks for your call.
Wait 1 second, Dick. Dick is going to be doing this. We didn't set it up yet.
Yeah.
But it's going to be doing a speech for the Jewish community. What are they called?
A group of rabbis have formed a group to oppose Mandami's election. And one of the things they're doing is a pre-election radio rally right before Election Day, and I'm going to be a speaker there.
Yeah, and thank God they are doing. I was so upset the last week or two about the Jewish vote and how they might vote for this guy. So that's pretty good.
Or not vote. There's several.
They should vote for Curtis, is what they should do.
They should.
They want to be protected in New York. Vote for Curtis.
Several yeshivas and other Jewish institutions, schools, have demanded that people register to vote in order to be a student at their school.
Right.
And that's a good step. But the complacence of the Jews in the face of this wanton anti-Semitism is terrible.
This doesn't look good, but hopefully they're going to wake up because of you and a couple other guys. By the way, Sandra, we love Sandra. She wanted to add that, I think she texted me, so I have to add this. Wanted to add that I think Putin has an addiction to killing, and he can't stop no matter what he says. So that's what Sandra wanted to tell us.
Well,
thank you, Sandra.
Henry Kissinger said the worst reason to be in a war is that you're in a war. And that
wait. The worst reason
to go to war is that you're already in a war.
Wow.
And you need to send more troops. And he knows about how we did that in Vietnam. And so again, basically, he's right. Now,
we have some time, Dick.
Okay. As you know, Texas reapportioned its House district and is getting 5 extra Republican seats as a result of that. And that bill has passed, been law, and it's now official. Well, Florida, Missouri, Ohio, and Indiana, all of which are Republican states, are saying that they might follow Texas and do that. And in Missouri, where Cleaver, not Eldridge Cleaver, I forget his first name,
right,
who is a left-wing Democratic congressman, may lose his seat in a reapportionment. In Indiana, there are a few congresspeople that might flip, and Florida has a tremendous opportunity to flip. DeSantis says that he could really change the composition of the delegation.
He originally wanted to try to have the GOP pick up more seats during the most recent redistricting process, but faced some resistance. But a ruling from the Florida Supreme Court upholding the current map, along with the advocacy from Trump, should embolden DeSantis to pick up those extra seats this time.
Republicans could pick up somewhere between 1 and 5 seats.
Just in Florida, you're talking about?
Yeah.
Wow.
Most likely targeting Democratic Representative Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who represents us in Delray.
Yeah. Does she?
Yeah.
Oh, my God, I can't stand
Jared
that.
Moskowitz, for example. Now, as Democrats in California look to counter Texas with their own redistricting plan, the GOP is setting its sights on states from Florida, Indiana to Missouri, signaling a new phase in the fight.
Yeah, you want to start a fight, there you go. And you want to dance?
And underscoring what the Republicans are doing is the fact that, number one, there's been a big change in the country in registration from Democrat to Republican. And in the 30 states that list party, that gap has closed by almost 5 million voters who switched from Democrat to Republican.
Wow.
And then in addition, you have 1.5 million illegal immigrants who've been thrown out of the country, who now can't fraudulently vote.
Fraudulently.
They never could, but
right.
they never
could do it legally.
Well, you
got motor voter and all that, sure.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So it looks like we're making up some ground here.
I think so. Hey, what do you think about the midterm?
Well, I think that you have to realize the headwinds administration has in the midterm are very significant. There's always voters vote against the party in power.
Sure.
Because they think it's part of the whole Constitution and Madison's ideas of checks and balances.
Sure.
But occasionally they depart from that, like they voted to keep Republicans in power after 9/11. And they
also with Clinton, right?
They voted in favor of it under Clinton.
Right.
And I think that it's very possible that we could keep control of the House, particularly with these changes that are being made. The change in California, is that would offset Texas, is not guaranteed because the voters have to approve bypassing the redistricting commission that they put in the Constitution. And that's something that's very possible that they may reject it.
Even with all the liberal voters in California?
Well, the polling so far is 2-1 against it.
What is the liberal percentage in California? Do you know? Do you have an idea?
Well,
it's got to be big, right?
It's very big. As anchored by the fact that about 40% of the vote in California is Latino. And for the most part, they have not moved, as Texas and other Latinos have moved, away from the Democratic Party.
Okay, so we got to take a break. What are we coming up with, Dick?
We'll talk about the fact that Trump's tariff deal with the EU has taken effect, which is the biggest trade deal in history.
Okay.
And the numbers make that claim at least clear.
Okay, when we get back. Thank you.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DePira Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. Doug asked a question about the midterm elections coming up, and the situation there is complicated. Let me just share it with you in some detail. There are two ways that polling can tell us who's going to win the House. The Senate, for the most part, is state-by-state polling, and we need to let that evolve as the election approaches. But in the House, it's much more a question of party. And there are two variables. One is pollsters ask all voters in the election coming up for Congress, in your district, who would you vote for, the Democrat or the Republican candidate? That's called the generic ballot. The other is that they ask voters, do you have a favorable or an unfavorable opinion of the Democratic Party and of the Republican Party? And they're sending completely mixed signals. In the favorability of parties, Democrats have been absolutely clobbered. They currently lead, Republicans lead Democrats in national favorability by 42 to 34, overwhelmingly high. But in the meantime, on the generic ballot, Democrats have been leading Republicans and still lead them by 46 for 42.
Wait, slow it down. So
they say that they say they like the Republicans better, but they're still voting Democrat. And that's probably because of the historic idea that midterm elections, the party that occupies the White House lost seats 27 out of 30 times.
Right.
This is old James Madison's constitutional scheme of periodic elections, wherein the opposition party, being out of power, has more of a motivation to vote. So they tend to do relatively better, picking up seats, but not always majority. Going back to the people every 2 years was the idea for the House particularly, was only 1/3 of the senators chosen each 2 years. It's therefore unsurprising that the popular vote itself is a reliable gauge of which party wins the House majority in 28 out of 30 midterm elections, 93% of the time. And that right now is the Democrats. But the election is much closer than it should be. When you look at the favorability of the parties, you see that people don't really like the Democratic Party. So I think that what's going on here is that the voters are saying, look, Trump is really aggressive, he's really authoritarian, and I'm worried that he'll go too far. And I want to vote Democrat for a check and a balance so that there's some offset to Trump. But as Trump's policies continue and succeed, and the economy is getting better, I think that's fading. I think voters are more and more willing to trust the Republicans in Congress as long as Trump is president.
Well, they're more concerned with putting gas in the car and food on the table than the ideological idea of the party, no?
Well, until now, at the moment, they're siding with the Democrats. So you got to follow how that happens. I think that it's a moving target. I think that as Trump succeeds in his policies, and we're not getting inflation, we're not getting crime, we're not getting other stuff. That unemployment's going down. Illegal immigration has disappeared. Gas is still gas is coming down in price. I think as people see that, the trust factor in Trump's policies will increase. And the percentage of people that say they're going to vote Democrat for Congress, which has been dropping but is still a majority, will probably continue.
Kind of like when in a business that you hate the guy that's running around doing, but he does a good job, so you leave him there.
Yeah,
right.
That's right. But on the other hand, the Democratic Party image is crashing. People hate it. It's become the party of crime, the party of illegal immigration, the party of inflation, the party of mandatory gender change, all kinds of stuff. So I think that what's going on is that historically Democrats do better. But this year things may be turning on their head. Trump does better with downscale voters, an historic reversal. So maybe Trump's lead with less educated voters may pilot the GOP to majorities in Congress. The answer is we're really looking at a work in progress. On the one hand, people look at Trump's presidency and they say, wow, if there's ever a time for checks and balances, this is it. On the other hand, they're looking and they're saying, you know, these policies are succeeding. This stuff is working. And all the warnings we've been getting have turned out not to be the case. The gas price did indeed drop. The inflation has indeed stopped, or reduced. Illegal immigration has indeed been cut off. Trump has indeed settled a whole range of wars around the world. So maybe we're going to give him his congressional majority too. And the trend is in that direction, but we're not over the top yet. So it's a work in progress, but at the moment the signs are fairly good. Now, today is a historic day in history, or this week is, because our landmark trade deal that Trump cut with the European Union, the mother of all trade deals, takes effect. EU has committed to providing almost $1 trillion in U.S. energy purchases through 2028, plus $600 billion in new investments in America and expanded procurement of American defense equipment. Together, these $1.35 trillion commitments represent an unprecedented scale and will help reduce long-standing U.S. goods trade deficit with Europe. Under the framework agreement, the EU will eliminate tariffs on all U.S. industrial goods and expand market access for American agriculture, seafood, and a variety of other stuff. The whole concept here is that everybody warned that if the U.S. raises tariffs, other countries would offset and a trade war would ensue. But it's not happening. What's happening is countries are saying, hey, I want a share of the American market. I want to be able to be popular with American consumers. And we European companies are not going to raise our prices, which alienates the American consumer and decreases our market share. And we're willing to see some decrease in our profitability because tariffs are going up because we want to hang on to the American market. And Trump bet on that, and everybody else bet against him. And it was incredible that he did that. Once the EU enacts its tariff reduction legislation as promised to, U.S. tariffs on automobiles will be lowered with no Section 232 tariffs applying to covered European vehicles, already facing a 15% or higher rate. Energy is at the heart of the agreement. Europe's $750 billion commitment to purchase U.S. liquefied natural gas, oil, and nuclear products through 28 cements America's role as the world's energy superpower, while reducing Europe's dependence on adversarial supplies, meaning stuff
that
from
is
Russia.
so important right now, there.
And when the war started with Ukraine and Russia, everybody said, "Oh no, Europe is dependent on Russian energy."
Right.
And Russia said, "We're going to use that dependency to increase our military prospects." The U.S. replied by increasing its natural gas production, and natural gas can be liquefied. The LNG facility, liquefied natural gas, where the gas is converted to liquid and can be put on a ship and sent anywhere. And those tariff collections so far have reduced the deficit by $3.3 trillion. And will reduce...
Wait, trillion?
Yep.
Wow.
From January 6th to August 19th, the deficit will drop by $3.3 trillion from Trump's tariffs.
Wow, that's
according to the Congressional Budget Office.
That's amazing.
Those tariff collections would reduce need for federal borrowing and reduce outlays for an initial $700 billion of interest.
And he might use it to alleviate some of our tax.
And he use it for tax cuts, and maybe as I think was it Ray who asked us that?
Yeah, my friend Ray has
suggested that would be used for rebates to the American consumers.
No, I don't think he said that.
That wasn't right.
No, but now we got to have him on.
Richard.
Oh, that was Richard, right?
Yeah, but he's right, and I think that's going to be a very important trend.
Well, let's have Ray on right now. He wants to talk about the Chris Christie thing we just talked about.
Okay.
What's up, Ray?
Hey, guys. First of all, happy Labor Day weekend. You guys have a great show.
Happy Women in Labor Day weekend, what?
Yeah, okay, you can do that too. So my question is, there's been talk of Chris Christie, lately. Do you think this is a segue of bringing Christopher Wray in? Because nothing's really happening with him. It's happening to everybody else.
Yeah, what do you mean, Ray being prosecuted?
Well, just somehow being questioned because, he was part of the Rat Pack, against Trump and all of that.
We'll see. We'll see.
He's the one that introduced Christie Christie introduced Ray to Trump, from what I believe.
I didn't know that. Well, thanks. We'll follow it up, Ray.
All right, Ray. Good to hear from you.
Now, another story I want people to pay attention to is how Sharia law is taking over in Europe.
It's unbelievable. In Sweden, it is now known that there are Sharia patrols on the street that check if women are wearing enough clothes. There are reports that women have been spat on. Oh, this is so disgusting. I'm sickened by this. They've been spit on if they were deemed not to have the correct clothes on. And that's not disgusting that you're spitting on them. You're worried about the color of their clothes. And there is now almost 60 no-go zones in Sweden, with many women in Sweden reporting that they are afraid of walking outside alone in the evening. According to official sources in Sweden, around 68,000 women and girls are genetically mutilated. Sweden has long upheld itself as a feminist utopia, but that idea quickly comes crashing down when looking at reality. Last year, there was 10,167 reported rapes in this country. This is some of the most in the entire world per capita. It is well known that the Swedish no-go zones parallel societies run by Sharia. This is disgusting. I'm sickened by this story.
Yeah.
I'm sickened by this.
You should be.
I hate these friggin' people.
It's become increasingly clear that the goal of the terrorists in the world is not just to blow stuff up, but it's to make Sharia law.
The caliphate, right?
Make Sharia law predominate.
Listen, men were put on this earth by God to protect women and children. These people are doing a complete opposite of what they're supposed to be, these men with the Sharia law. It's so unnatural. I mean, animals, the male animals protect the females. I mean, just what you're supposed to do. So don't get me started. A little late for that.
Kennedy has been moving to strengthen the U.S. production of essential medicines. He stated that the U.S. is taking concrete steps to reduce its reliance on foreign nations for critical drug ingredients, particularly from China and India. There's a lot of levers that can be pulled and need to be used to bring onshoring back, said John Knox, the Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary of Health and Human Services. According to Knox, 70% of active pharmaceutical ingredients and key drug-making materials used in the U.S. are sourced from India and China. He noted that China alone produces 90% of the world's antibiotics. 90% of the antibiotics come from China. It's really a critical national security issue at this point. We have these trade wars and economic issues going on. The U.S. dependence on Chinese pharmaceutical manufacturing stems from years of cost-cutting by major American drug companies, which moved production overseas due to lower labor costs and looser regulations. As a result, China has become the largest supplier of generic drugs. Experts have long warned that any disruption in China, whether due to trade wars or political tensions, could severely impact our access in the U.S. to these life-saving treatments. To address this vulnerability, President Trump recently signed an executive order to expand the Strategic Active Pharmaceutical Ingredients Reserve, SAPIR, a federal stockpile designed to secure a domestic supply of effective drug components. The White House said the move is part of a broader effort to safeguard national health and security against global chain disruption.
Wasn't there, I'm not sure right now, during COVID, wasn't there a problem with China and what they had to give us as far as pharmaceutical stuff? What was there? I kind of remember something going on.
Well, there was a problem during COVID. China was not willing to sell hypodermic needles to the U.S.
Right, that was it.
And that limited our capacity to vaccinate people.
And I remember Trump was freaking out.
Trump was freaking out. And his deputy national security advisor, blocking on the name.
Yeah, I don't remember either.
Basically almost threatened war.
Right.
To give us access to these hypodermic needles.
I remember, and that's why he's doing this.
And China backed down
This
quickly.
is where his mindset is right now.
That's right.
That's the one thing about Trump also. You mess with him one time, he doesn't forget the negatives. He forgets a lot of the regular stuff. Who cares? But something like that, he remembers that, and he probably has this in his mind for 7 years right now. And he's,
Now, speaking of meds, Cheryl Atkinson, formerly of CBS News.
Oh, we got to make it. We have to break, Dick.
We have to break.
We could tease the next one.
Okay, good.
What about Cheryl?
So go ahead. We're going to talk a lot. She issued a big column that I'd like us to cover here about whether mass shootings are being spurred by pharmacological drugs, by psychotropic drugs that are encouraging violence. We'll do that when we come back.
Okay, great.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
This is the Dick Morris and Doug DePiro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group.
That last story with the shootings and all that, I keep going back to that. There's many variables. This is Roxana texting in. Many variables, and the hate media is also responsible on some level. Kids growing up with that atmosphere, with the hate media thing. And, what did Newscomb just say? Punch a MAGA guy in the jaw. What did we do last week? Something like that? Yeah, okay. So that's part of it also. There's a lot of hate going on.
Now, at last, the Jewish community is taking action to try to stop Mandami.
I think it's Mandami. I think.
Alarmed by the rising political influence of Mamdani and his overtly anti-Israel rhetoric, Jews are mobilizing in unprecedented fashion ahead of the November elections. And it was particularly interesting that in some schools, Jewish schools, administrators have reportedly taken the extraordinary step of requiring parents to show proof of voter registration in order for their children to attend classes. Such measures reflect both the gravity with which the leadership views the situation and their determination to transform voter participation into a communal mobilization effort of historic proportions. At the center of this mobilization lies the candidacy of Zoran Mamdani, a socialist politician whose platform has been criticized by many Jewish leaders as anti-Israel and at times overtly anti-Semitic. His statements, critics argue, go beyond policy disagreements into outright hostility toward Jewish self-determination.
So you have
and communal security.
And you have a nice speech that you're going to give these people. I hope that happens. You know, everyone out there, you have to vote for Curtis. That just has to happen. He's going to protect the community, especially the Jewish community.
Yeah, and if you say you're voting for Adams, for God's sakes, the guy's at 9% in the polls. He's the incumbent mayor.
Right, so you're just throwing away your vote.
What you can do, just throw away your vote.
Right.
And to say you're going to vote for Cuomo is outrageous.
He'll kill you.
How many of your grandmothers is he going to kill?
Yeah, right.
I mean,
you only have two.
By requiring that they get locked up in nursing homes, literally.
It's Curtis.
Even though they're sitting there with COVID patients all over the place. The guy who is not genocidal and the guy who is not corrupt is Curtis Sliwa.
And he proved his strength, how great he is and on the street. And he's on the street every day. This guy is not coming down and going out a window and waving to everyone. This guy's in the subway. He's on the street. So he's the guy. I mean, you just got to look at, especially a New Yorker. I'm a New Yorker. I walk through the streets. I see the difference here. You know, you get a politician that waves from the car and waves from one little spot with all this security around him. Curtis is walking all over the place. So you want a guy to protect you and you want a guy to take care of the city. It's Curtis Sliwa.
Couple of other stories. Public school enrollment has dropped in the United States, partially because of dropping birth rates, but more importantly, school choice options. From 19 to 23, there's been a 2.5% drop in public school enrollment. More than 1 million kids have been pulled out of the school system because of the crazy policies of the unions. At the same time, immigration is dropping enormously, and a virtual halt to unauthorized border crossings, plus stepped-up deportations, have had a tremendous effect in reducing migrant immigration and the number of foreign-born in the United States. Trump recently ruffled some feathers when he announced that the government was going to buy shares in NVIDIA.
They call them equity stakes, right?
Yeah, stock shares.
Uh-huh.
And the question was, should the federal government acquire equity in private companies? And I believe they should, and Trump believes they should, particularly because these are not voting stocks. It's not like the federal government is telling Intel how to run its company.
This is a sovereign wealth fund, they call it?
Yeah, it's that the U.S. is investing in that.
Uh-huh.
Let me explain that. The Arab countries and the OPEC countries have long formed sovereign wealth funds, which is money controlled by the king or the dictator or the people that run the country that invest in private equity. And the U.S. never had such.
So it's the government investing in private equity. All right,
That's
go
right.
on. Go
and
on.
Trump is now using the surpluses that are being generated by his tariffs to do that. And it really is a new policy tool that I think is very important.
It's less a stock and more buying into a company?
It's investing, yeah.
Right.
Interesting. Trump is also threatening the licenses of the networks. He's threatening ABC and NBC, saying that they're simply an arm of the Democratic Party and a threat to our democracy. He says, why is it that ABC and NBC fake news, two of the absolute worst and most biased networks anywhere in the world aren't paying millions of dollars a year in licensing fees. They should lose their licenses for their unfair coverage of Republicans and conservatives, but at a minimum, they should pay big for having the privilege of using the most valuable airwaves anywhere in the world.
Yeah, they shouldn't be rewarded, he said. It should be terminated.
14,000 Venezuelans didn't know that they had a round-trip ticket. They came to the United States, and they hoped to reach the U.S., but now they've turned course and turned south. Turns out that was a round-trip ticket.
Known as the reverse flow migration.
Now, remember Mark Teixeira, the first baseman for the Yankees?
Baby.
Who was
Phil remembers this, right, Phil?
All-star. Well, he's announced that he's running for Congress in Texas. And I think he can win because he's a strongly pro-Trump candidate. He's heavily Republican. And that district was represented by Chip Roy, who's a royal pain in the neck, who always opposes Trump every chance he gets, even though he's a conservative Republican. He's always saying Trump isn't going far enough. And now he's retired, and I hope Teixeira takes his place.
Now, Rubio denies visas to Palestinian officials to bar them from U.S. General Assembly meeting. Rubio said he would not issue visas to Palestinian officials, preventing them from attending the upcoming United Nations General Assembly in New York.
The Federal Appeals Court has ruled that Trump's tariffs need to be stopped. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit affirmed a lower court ruling that the tariffs were not authorized by the statute Trump cited to justify them. Fortunately, they stayed the ruling until October 14th to give the administration time to appeal to the federal court.
No, to the Supreme Court, right.
Trump said that tariffs are still in place, and he said that the appeals court was highly partisan, and that if allowed to stand, this decision would literally destroy the United States of America.
So the Supreme Court will take this before that, right?
They'll take it,
because it's so big.
I hope they're going to rule.
Uh-huh. That's amazing.
Now, there's another fight going on in Congress that let me explain to you.
We got 1 minute, Dick.
Yeah. There is something called the pocket rescission rule, where the president can impound money that has been voted by Congress and saying we're not going to spend it. And Congress can, at the time, override that and demand the money be spent. But if the president makes that finding within 45 days of an election, his judgment cannot be questioned, and the rescission goes ahead. And that's what Trump is now using, and the Democrats are raising hell over it.
We got to talk about this next week again because I don't understand this that well.
Okay, I'll explain it.
But it's an honor to be here with you, Mr. Morris. And believe I just said that? You believe I just said that?
Yeah, right. Are we? Yeah.
We're just about out.
Let me just do one other.
Okay, go.
Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson has signed, believe it or not, an executive order authorizing immediate drastic action to respond to the federal government in Chicago. An executive order that directs all our city departments not to collaborate with federal overreach. That they're not allowed to help ICE enforce the law.
That's unbelievable. He doesn't want to help
a pro-crime executive order.
Yeah, and he doesn't want his people to be safe just because he doesn't like Trump. Anyway, I'm not going to say it again, but the honor thing, to be honored and to be on the show, I'm not going to say it again.
Well, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
No. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
No. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to The Dick Morris Show. You can hear The Dick Morris Show Sundays at noon. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?